I want to introduce you, the audience, to what I would call basic comms of my military experience, business experience, education and experience, and even an exchange this morning helped me realize the importance of what Chris says is Chris Voss, Master Negotiator, and the importance of using what they call the quick 2+1 is using labels followed by silence and mirroring up with silence or mirroring down with silence. So what they call the quick 2+1 I would call basic comms, and that in everyday life it seems the majority of people make mistakes in what might be low stakes. And in the military, we didn't have that luxury. A small mistake or little miscommunication could have grave consequences. And in my trade, in the artillery, we had high stakes comms, lots of lives depended on our effective and timely communication. And so somebody in the military, many people over many years, improved comms across the military to minimize delay, to have accurate, timely fire. Because countless lives depend on effective artillery. So in the real world, usually does not lead to communication or parts thereof, usually don't result in, are not affected by, in high stakes. So what do I say? Seems, so why is that important in everyday life? I would say that's important because this bit of miscommunication this morning could have, just lucky, it didn't have grave consequences. Had it been a different person, had it been a different situation, a different context, it could have had extremely grave consequences simply for an error, a small error in communication. Just lucky. So I think that ties in with Socrates was sentenced to, how do I say this on YouTube? Unalive, sentenced to lose his life for asking questions. Seems like Chris Voss discovered how to improve asking questions Yeah. I'm confident in saying Chris Voss improved the Socratic method. And the significance is to asking questions now let's see if I can remember from my notes. To confirm, to have more information, to confirm information, and to discover information is the significance of asking questions. To avoid an otherwise simple exchange from developing into a high stakes situation. So that can be done by asking questions like what Chris Voss calls a quick 2+1. What I call basic comms, and I call it basic comms because if we ask questions, we can avoid miscommunication. If we practice the quick 2+1, we can, in basic comms, we can gather more information, confirm information. And so how do we do the quick 2+1 basic comms? Is most of us practice these 4 skills, but we're not trained to. It seems society hasn't learned the significance. And it starts with labels, followed by silence. Labels followed by silence, then it's mirroring upwards with an upward inflection, followed by silence, and mirroring downwards, followed by silence. So that's labels, 2 mirrors, and silence. We all do these, sometimes by accident. It seems we have not, as a society, we have not been trained to ask questions this way. There's a whole long spiel about the difficulties and evolutions of learning to ask questions. Though labels usually looks like, sounds like, seems like, feels like, and I'm trialing, theorizing on a 5th label, a label that comes from the movies Cheech and Chong, and it's to add comedic nature to it, to add some comedy into some of our exchanges, and then one of the movies in Cheech and Chong, they're famous for saying smells like. So usually in a conversation, you would use seems like, sounds like, looks like, feels like, and with a bit of a comedy twist, you could add or include smells like. All of those are followed by silence, and then it's a mirror with an upward inflection makes it sound like a question, followed by silence. The other way of asking questions, gathering more information, is a mirror with an downward inflection. Makes it sound like an understanding statement. And the silence always encourages people to talk more. So you're gathering more information. So it's a different style of asking. A mirror with a downward inflection is a different style of asking questions. These can avoid being like Socrates, prosecuted and sentenced to losing his life. Improving how to ask questions. Everybody, and I'll say this, Chris Voss says everybody likes to use and receive labels.